This message comes from Schwab. With the new Schwab Teen Investor Account, teens can gain hands-on investing experience and build positive money habits. It's an account co-owned by you and your teen, so you can monitor and engage with the account while your teen learns how to invest and manage money. Learn more at schwab.com.
We don't like friction. Like, we are actively, as a society, and I just mean this very loosely, and obviously not everyone, but I do think, as a general rule, we are trying to avoid friction at all costs. It's not just in our art, but it's also in the way we move about the world. It's about the way we interact with our loved ones. It's the way we avoid having tough conversations and calling things out as they are. And I know this is just a movie. I know it's just a biopic. I know it's just like, it's entertainment, but all of those things flow in and out of the way we move in the real world and our reactions to the way things work in the real world.
A warning to listeners, this episode contains discussion of child sexual abuse. I recently saw Michael, the feature film directed by Antoine Fuqua with editorial guidance from the Jackson family. And like a lot of celebrity biopics blessed by a family trying to protect its legacy, the film is hagiographic, entertaining, and somewhat perplexing. It opens with the Jackson brothers practicing a song and dance routine at their home in Gary, Indiana in 1966. You see the rise of the Jackson Five, alongside the abuse Michael faced at the hands of his strict father, Joe Jackson. Then, as a childlike, stunted adult, Michael attempts to break free from his father's control, while Joe keeps trying to guilt him back into the family band. The movie ends in 1988, skirting the allegations of child sexual abuse that Michael Jackson later faced, as three bold words appear on the screen. His story continues. I watched this film soon after rereading Margot Jefferson's On Michael Jackson. In it, she describes the, quote, perverse appeal of child stardom and the lonely divided self that emerges as child stars become adults. That tension was laid bare in Michael, even if that wasn't what the filmmakers intended. To get into this, I'm here with Aisha Harris, NPR critic and co-host of Pop Culture Happy Hour. Welcome back to the show, Aisha.
Hello, Brittany.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. I want to start off by talking about child stardom. I mean, so much of the film focuses on the effects of child stardom. The film begins in Michael's childhood and ends when he's about 30 years old, and in between, he doesn't mature almost at all as a character or as a person. How do you think the film wants us to reflect on Michael's child stardom?
Well, I don't think the film wants us to reflect, really. At least not in any tangible, meaningful way. I think this movie, in many ways, is just kind of regurgitating the same stories that the family has been telling about itself for decades now. Joseph, his father, was domineering. He was, this is not a word I don't think I've ever heard any of them use, but he was abusive. I think by modern day standards, we consider that
child abuse, yeah.
Abuse. And so we see those things happening with Coleman Domingo's character playing Joe. And beneath it all, there is the sense of like, well, if Joe wasn't like that, we wouldn't have Michael Jackson. We wouldn't have the Jackson Five. We wouldn't have this very successful family. And that seems to be a prevailing narrative that is just kind of set again in a slightly different way here than it has been in other places.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like such a big part of, I think, not just the film's point of view, but also it's a big part of the Jackson family mythology, American, like, famous family mythology. If not for this thing that you might find to be completely unacceptable in your own family, we would not have this, phenomenal outcome where there's this incredibly talented child who can, make lots of money. And that's not just a way of thinking about these sort of things that applies to the Jacksons only, I would say.
Well, I do think there is something very unique about the Jackson lore around child stardom because, when we often think about child stars, it's framed as like they succeeded in spite of their stage mom, stage parent, stage dads, whatever. The parents may get credit for actually, taking these kids to their auditions and whatever, but they're not usually credited with like creating and honing that talent in the same way that Joe Jackson's like lore has been.
Yes, Joe Jackson has been framed as a creative visionary in a way that does feel unique. Like, I think of the way Judy Garland's talent and fame has been framed in the public eye. Like, even though her parents were entertainers themselves and extremely influential in getting her to become a star so young, nobody really knows their names. And we definitely know Joe Jackson's name.
But I think also, like, when I think about today and all of the current pop stars we have who started off as child stars, Miley Cyrus, Ariana Grande, Sabrina Carpenter, Justin Bieber, although he didn't come through the same like Disney Nickelodeon mill, but he was a YouTube star first. We are drawn to those stories because they are sort of these cautionary tales. And yet we still are very excited and happy when they do succeed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I oftentimes, as you touched on repeatedly, like around the star child, there is an entire family that you were introduced to, like the parent/manager or the talented sibling. In Michael's case, there was a whole tour bus full of Jacksons, and Joe was determined to take them around the country. As we already know, the truth that many Jacksons have told does not line up with this kind of ideal of a nuclear family. But I wonder, how does that image of the supportive nuclear family affect how we think about these child stars? And what happens when that image starts to crack?
Well, this is one of the issues I had with Michael, the movie, was the fact that it doesn't really give us a clear sense of what the family dynamic actually was like. I feel like if you are under the age of 30 and have not seen the Jacksons in American Dream, or like don't really have a grasp on who the Jacksons were, what they meant for a very long time. The movie, like, first of all the siblings they show on screen are interchangeable. Like, I have no idea who is supposed to be who.
They don't mention who is Jackie. I think you vaguely know who Jackie is just because he's older than everybody else. But like,
yeah,
you don't know who is Marlon, who's Randy, who's Tito. No clue.
No, we know who LaToya is because she gets several scenes with her brother. But we also pretend that, Randy and Janet don't exist. But the movie really kind of focuses on this father-son dynamic and making Joe the arch villain that, like, Michael has to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, really, the film kind of sets up Joe Jackson, who's played by Coleman Domingo, as like the only source of difficulty in Michael's life to a certain degree.
Yeah. Black Americans were so gung-ho on this importance of keeping the nuclear family unit together, while also ignoring the fact that this was a family, it started as a family, and it seems to be, and has been for a long time, about a business, and may continue to be a business, because this movie, Michael, made over $200 million worldwide over this first weekend.
Over the first weekend, yes.
Yeah.
And ain't too many movies doing that these days. Like, not even talking about biopics. Are not too many movies, period, doing that these days.
Period.
There is a lot going on within this family that even they acknowledge as totally factual.
Yeah, drug issues, domestic violence.
But also, a lot of those things are also, I think part of the reason why people are fascinated by this family is because a lot of those things, however unfortunate, are also very relatable. A lot of the same drama that went on in the Jackson family is a lot of the same drama that a lot of people have going on in their families. Almost takes me back to like the Beyonce Jay-Z elevator, like Solange elevator moment, right? The thing I think that a lot of people still grab onto with that moment is it's like, oh, we're watching this famous family deal with the same drama that a lot of us do, which is that, you know, my sister hates my husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, my sister hates my husband and wanted to curse him out and wanted to choke him out for mistreating me. And that is, however unfortunate or whatever, it's extremely relatable. But yeah, I think one aspect of the film that you brought up that is not quite relatable is the presence of Joe Jackson and kind of the Svengali role that he plays in this family, specifically in terms of like Michael and his career. He's a type of like father, manager, dadager, Svengali figure that we have seen across pop culture, from Richard Williams, Serena and Venus's dad, to Matthew Knowles, of Destiny's Child Solange Beyonce, to Joe Simpson of Ashley and Jessica Simpson, Kit Culkin. Listen, y'all, the Culkins, it was a lot of them. They were acting, okay? And Earl Woods, Tiger Woods' father, right? What do you think about how we try to metabolize or understand these figures, this kind of like dadager figure in pop culture?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned, Matthew Knowles and Earl Woods, because now that I'm thinking about it, it's different with Black child stars than their white counterparts. And I think part of that goes back to this general idea of like, you've got to be twice as good. Like all of these things that Black people are up against, and especially we're up against, 40, 50 years ago. Yeah. Like in terms of the barriers that were in place, that like you can understand why the parent and especially like the hard driving dad would be so integral to the mythology of these child stars.
Well, also too, I even think about the stereotype that, and this goes against statistics. But the stereotype that Black men don't care for their children, aren't in their children's lives, and don't spend any time with their children. Yes. I can't say that the answer is to go all the way in the opposite direction and like conscript your children into like a lifetime of like stage life. Like, I don't know if
that's never the answer.
I don't think that's the answer. But I do think that assumption, that cultural assumption and dynamic is also at play, and at least the way that the lore around these fathers forms.
Yeah, because it's like, at least you had a daddy. At least he was in the home. It's like, it's that kind of thing. And in interviews, the Jackson brothers have said this, like, this kept us off the streets. Like, Joe did not want us out in the streets. And, like, we credit him for giving us the discipline and for keeping us out of those things. Now, again, it didn't stop them from doing other things later in life that were not great. In some cases proven, in other cases with Michael alleged. But like, it does seem as if there is such a strong desire to really value this idea of Black parents succeeding through their children, regardless of what they had to do to get there. And that does a disservice to the children who eventually become adults and then have all this baggage that they can't deal with. And it also just does a disservice to like this idea of like how you can nurture talent without being overbearing.
We're going to take a quick break, but first, if you're a longtime listener or brand new to It's Been a Minute, be sure to come back every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes. And did you know you can make it even easier to get new episodes by hitting the follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app? Whether you're a new friend or a loyal bestie, join the team by subscribing today. Coming up after the break.
A biopic inherently is not supposed to separate the art from the artist. Like, the whole point is trying to connect dots, no matter how flimsy, between the musician's art and then their lives, their personal lives.
Stick around.
This message comes from Rosetta Stone. If you have travel coming up, like a spring break or summer vacation, imagine arriving actually understanding the language. Rosetta Stone has been the trusted leader in language learning for over 30 years, with millions of users and 25 languages to choose from. Ready to start learning a new language this spring? Visit rosettastone.com/NPR today to explore Rosetta Stone and choose the language that's right for you.
Support for NPR and the following message come from HomeServe. Owning a home is full of surprises, and when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. HomeServe is ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. Plans start at just $4.99 a month. Sign up today at homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
This message comes from Wise, the app for international people using money around the globe. You can send, spend, and receive in up to 40 currencies with only a few simple taps. Be smart. Get Wise. Download the Wise app today or visit wise.com. T's and C's apply.
I want to talk about something else that this film made me think of that recently happened in pop culture, which is Justin Bieber's headlining Coachella set, where he sang along with old YouTube videos of himself performing as a kid. I don't know. I felt it really highlighted how much he had aged and how much he's grown. And yet it almost seemed like people were kind of uncomfortable or bored with grown-up Justin embracing kind of like a younger version of himself that was manufactured for the public eye. But if you contrast that with Michael, to your point, we're supposed to see Michael, like we just see MJ as this little boy that never grew up. We see him toy shopping as a grown-up while his brothers are going on dates. We see Michael living with his parents while into adulthood. I mean, you see actually all the Jackson siblings like basically live with their parents until adulthood, unless they get married, which is also not really explained. Like, unlike sort of adult Justin Bieber and kid Justin Bieber, who in this Coachella performance kind of reconciled, like we're watching that reconciliation like on stage, which I found very compelling. In the film, Michael, like kid Michael and grown-up Michael don't need to reconcile because they are one and the same. There are Mickey Mouse or Snoopy. They're like a totally flat character. But I also think, judging by the response from fans online and that real money that they spent to go see this film the first weekend, I think the fans like that. I wonder, like, why do you think fans might prefer the myth of the forever childlike star while rejecting the idea of the former child star who's now a three-dimensional adult like Justin Bieber?
I understand the desire to live in that nostalgia. I loved Michael Jackson as a kid. Like, I was obsessed, kind of gave into the myth that he and his siblings and his family had cultivated of like, he's a child, you know, like he's infantile, which is weird because it's like teenage kids can be horny. Like we all know this, that is part of adolescence.
Yeah,
so it's like this,
yeah.
So like
firsthand, yes.
Right. So the idea that like him being both a child, but also not being able to be sexual, like that doesn't jibe because a lot of people are. But I had this block up that eventually went away after I saw Leaving Neverland, the 2019 documentary. And so I understand why viewers want to watch Michael and just turn everything off. I don't agree with it. I think we should be able to sit with it. I think that like a biopic inherently is not supposed to separate the art from the artist. Like the whole point is trying to connect dots, no matter how flimsy, between the musician's art and then their lives, their personal lives. And the decision to end in 1988, before the first round of allegations, is a very convenient decision. But when you look at the latter half of his career, Michael's music was directly in response to the allegations.
Yes.
Everything from Have You Seen My Childhood and A Tabloid Junkie,
yes.
Money, not all of them, but most of them, they were directly addressing the allegations and very angry and very like the opposite of the child, like the wonder. These songs were like vitriolic. And that was also a part of him. And I think we can't ignore that, but we want to. And biopics are just meant to make us want to love the artist, no matter how flawed they may be. That is the end goal, because you want to sell more music, but B, also it's just like you want that legend to continue. You want to hold that like nice, clean version of what we remember tightly.
Why do you think it is that they were so willing to present us with a version of Michael that ultimately reads as flatter than the version that they gave us when he was alive?
I mean, there's always money in the banana stand, and Michael is the banana stand and has been even more so in death than the end of his life. Michael has never left the cultural conversation, but the longer he goes by not being alive, the more his like impact fades. And so every few years we're going to see them trying to go to that well again and bump that interest up again for new generations who maybe are less discerning or just like don't have any actual attachment to Michael Jackson. You know, I talked about this actually in my special episode we did for Pop Culture Happy Hour, which is like there's this sense that a lot of people grew up already believing that he probably did it, but like don't it's just like another part of his package. It's not really that important. It's not something to get upset about. It's just like whatever, this is part of it. And I think I think it's played well for the Jacksons and the estate.
Well, I mean, to your point, like at the time of Michael Jackson's death, the estate was more than $500 million in debt, according to court documents.
Yes, it was.
In 2025, Forbes valued the estate at $3.5 billion. I imagine this film will probably only grow this fortune. And also, I mean, also to be clear, like the family does not run the Michael Jackson estate. The Michael Jackson estate is overseen by its executors, John Branca, an entertainment lawyer whose likeness appears as a character in the movie, played by Miles Teller, and has, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of screen time.
So much
more
screen
than
time.
Quincy Jones, which is like, that didn't make any sense. Because the money has sometimes a way to travel before it gets to certain family members, I imagine that they would probably want to remove any possible barrier to making people feel good and positive and happy about Michael Jackson, and not thinking about those child sex abuse allegations that, you know, like you mentioned, they first surfaced in the early 90s, and up until literally April 2026, there have been, you know, allegations coming every few years.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Other than Janet, none of these people have been able to the siblings have been able to sort of make a career and live as nicely and largely as Michael, or close to it.
We're going to ignore LaToya's country album. I'm kidding.
Yeah, we are. Although let's put some respect on Centipede, Reeby's single from the 80s. The steady flow of money has dried up. And so the way for them to continue to get that money is through Michael. And anything that could threaten that is going to be cast aside. It's going to be excised. It's going to be diligently stomped on and thrown away. And that is the way this family operates.
We've talked just now about like why the family is eager possibly to sign up to portraying the most Mickey Mouse version of Michael that can be put together on screen. But you've also referred to films like Michael as a part of a broader trend. You called this era of celebrity biopics that we're in as an era of estate-approved, quote-unquote, legacy resets, from Whitney Houston to Freddie Mercury. You know, we've gotten these films that are interested in making us feel respect, admiration, and awe toward their subjects. And sometimes just outright forget, not even deny, but just like completely sidestep any sort of low moments. And when you and our producer Corey Antonio saw the film at a screening in the Bay Area, you both noted moments where it felt like the audience did not want to engage with anything tough about Michael's legacy. We have an idea of why the family is so unwilling to sort of deal with the unsavory bits of Michael's legacy, but why do you think the public is so unwilling to deal with it?
I mean, old myths die hard. And I think we don't like friction. Like, we are actively, as a society, and I just mean this very loosely, and obviously not everyone, but I do think, as a general rule, we are trying to avoid friction at all costs. It's not just in our art, but it's also in the way we move about the world. It's about the way we interact with our loved ones. It's the way we avoid having tough conversations and calling things out as they are. And I know this is just a movie. I know it's just a biopic. I know it's just like, it's entertainment, but all of those things flow in and out of the way we move in the real world and our reactions to the way things work in the real world.
Aisha, you know, in the special episode you wrote and hosted for NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour about how we think about Michael, you asked if there's room for an honest, holistic look at his legacy and imprint on American culture. And I say, oh my gosh, yes. I think that people want to see that. I think, to me, like the story of the Jacksons, I mean, I would watch a 20-part like Ezra Edelman, you know what I'm saying? Like documentary about that, where we actually really got really into it. Because to me, even more so than someone like O.J. Simpson, Michael Jackson and his family are like when we were thinking about the American dream, warts and all, they are the best representation of what that actually costs you and what that actually gets you, especially if you're Black. And
Absolutely.
I think that like
Absolutely.
that's something I think a lot of people would be interested in reflecting on. But also to your point, a lot of people, I think a lot of people would not want to think about their king in that way. And I guess a question I'll put forth to you is, I don't know, what ideas about Michael Jackson or emotions attached to him would people have to let go of to receive a piece of critical work like that?
I mean, you would have to accept that this was a man who was immensely talented and did some really great things and paved the way for so many artists who came after him. That part they've already got. The Stans already got that part. That was what Michael was trying to do, this movie. That was what they were trying to do. The other part of that is to reconcile that with and let it live alongside the knowledge that it is possible that he also did some horrible things. And he used that power and he used the fuel of his fans to protect himself and insulate himself. And so I think you have to be able to let those two truths live side by side and also see how they intertwined. Because again, it all feeds back into itself. It is both the music, it is the persona, it is the narratives, it is the myths. But I think most people are just like, they don't want to deal with that. Because it makes all of us feel icky and gross. And it also might force us to look at the people in our lives who might act the same way.
I think a lot of people are probably not ready for that one.
Nope.
Aisha, thank you so much for this conversation. This is the conversation about this film I've been wanting to have, and I'm so glad I got to have it with you.
Thank you.
That was NPR Pop Culture Happy Hour co-host Aisha Harris. You can listen to her deep dive into the many narratives of Michael Jackson in the Pop Culture Happy Hour podcast feed. So, a note about Michael Jackson. Allegations of sexual misconduct have followed him since at least 1993, when he was accused of sexual battery on a child. In 2005, he was tried on 10 criminal counts, including child molestation, abduction, false imprisonment, and extortion. He was acquitted of all charges. Michael Jackson, his legal team, and most of the Jackson family have consistently denied the allegations up to and following his death. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Corey Antonio Rose.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from Integrative Therapeutics, makers of Cortisol Manager, named Best Overall Ashwagandha Supplement by Vogue. Use code STRESS2026 for 20% off of Cortisol Manager on Amazon.com. This message comes from Bombas. Your feet hit the ground an average of 2,000 times in a mile. Bombas sports socks are designed to support you every step. Sprint to bombas.com/NPR and use code NPR for 20% off your first purchase. Support for NPR and the following message come from Spectrum Business, with connectivity solutions to help your business stay online and on track. Reliable connections, responsive support, and tailored solutions. Spectrum.com/business. Restrictions apply. Services not available in all areas.